Straw Hut Media.
Hi, I'm Nicole Atkins. Don't be alone with Jay Cahn.
Don't be alone with Jay Cahn.
Hi, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Cahn. I am Jay Cahn, and you're alone with me. So already you've violated the title of the show. I'm thrilled that you're here. The show is about connecting with people. I connect with people that I'm talking to, but hopefully connecting with you as well. And so I'd love to hear from you. Please write me at dbawjaykogen@gmail.com. That's Don't Be Alone with Jay Cahn @gmail.com. And send me your comments, your questions, and life questions that we can ask here on the show. All those things would be very helpful. And I'd love to hear what you think of the show and how you think we can make it better. The show originally was conceived by me. I'm a comedian, writer, comedy writer, just a guy, a philosophy student who wanted to talk to people, got tired of the modern life of not connecting with people. And that's the whole point of Don't Be Alone with Jay Cahn, is to connect with people. So I hope I'm connecting with you, and I'm definitely feeling connected to my guest today, who is Nicole Atkins, one of the great singer-songwriters. She is a very interesting, eclectic person, an artist in the true sense of the word. She does visual art, does music. She's an actress, and as you'll hear, we're considering making a show together. So we'll talk about that, but we'll also really talk about the main thing that I want to talk about is she's one of the busiest people I know. She just is always constantly doing something somewhere at some point, and I feel like I'm busy, but I'm not productive. I feel like I fill my days with things, but at the end of the day, what have I really done? Maybe you have that feeling too. I'm not sure. In the days of COVID, I had filled my days with nothing and felt like I had done nothing. But now that COVID's over, I'm busy doing errands and filling out forms and taking meetings. And still, at the end of the day, I don't feel like I've really done something. I really wanted to find out how I can make that busy feeling matter more. And we'll talk about that with Nicole right after this.
Don't be alone with Jay Cahn.
Nicole, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
This is great. Nicole and I are working together on a TV show. We have a mutual friend, Jim Turner, who introduced us, and I listened to some of her music. She's a great singer-songwriter. Your influences are so close to my influences musically. I mean, it seems, I should double check. I mean, It seems like, I hear 60s pop music all over the place. I hear my friend, my hero, Elvis Costello, built in, who has much of the same influences. I hear a lot of soul music. I hear, some cool 80s pop music, like pop sensibilities.
Golden age of radio.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love your music, and several of your tunes have made it to my all-time list. I have a list.
Really?
I have a playlist.
The all-time
and
list.
I have an all-time list.
Yes.
Some of your songs are on it. Some of my son's songs are on it. But
That's great.
More of Elvis Costello's songs are on it, and more of Frank Sinatra's songs are on it. So it's like, it's the world. It's a world of great music, and so I appreciate your music. Yes.
My mom only listens to me and Elvis Presley.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For her whole life.
I mean, not saying she shouldn't branch out, but there are other people she might like.
I know. The only way I can get her to listen to anything new is by putting the CD in her car and leaving it there.
Is there a compromise between you and Elvis Presley? Like, is there an artist that...
She likes Nick Cave.
Okay, that's a good compromise.
She thinks he reminds her of Neil Diamond and Jesus, and that he should do Broadway.
Yeah,
so I don't know if she gets it, but she really loves it.
Neil Diamond's kind of an interesting compromise between Elvis Presley and you.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
That's very good. So thank you for being here. I want to talk a little bit about your road to becoming an artist. I would say that you're mainly known for your music, but you do a billion things.
I'm a Renaissance man.
Yeah. You just talked about that you do graphic design, that you're cool. And you said because you drive. What does that mean?
Well, I went to school for illustration, but I didn't do graphic design in school. I was like, I'm going to be a purist. And, but once I started touring, you drive anywhere from 5 to 12 hours. So there's a lot of time in the car. So
it's more about riding than driving.
It's more about like messing with apps and making posters.
Right.
You know, so I do a lot of graphic design. I learned how to animate on Procreate, like on the iPad, and it's fun. It's a good way to pass time.
I learned how to Procreate in cars too,
right?
But a different kind of thing. But yeah, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very cool. And when we get together, you know, you have notebooks and you have things, and you actually have notebooks that you designed.
Yeah.
You not only have notes in notebooks, but you design notebooks.
Yeah, which I think is like a procrastination thing too.
Right. So, I mean, we'll get to my main question in a second, which has to do with being creative and procrastinating at the same time. But what stimulates you artistically? What is the thing that sort of gets you involved in, you know, again, you're voice actor, singer, songwriter, all that stuff, that there's a lot of creative energy coming from you.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Mostly fear of missing out. My FOMO is very high.
Right.
But I think it's just, I just always loved it ever since I was little. Like I used to watch Tommy on HBO when it first came out. Like my parents were sleeping, they were hungover, and would just watch Tommy and memorized all the words, wanted to like do it.
Right.
And you know,
Do you have a crush on Roger Daltrey?
No, I never did.
All right.
I never have a crush on the main guy. I always have a crush on the side guy.
Okay.
You know, I think I had a crush on Tina Turner. You know,
right.
But yeah, I just spending a lot of, my parents would go to bars and parties, and I'd be tired, and you know, just one more drink, and so I would always just organize all the kids that were stranded there to like do shows.
Oh, that's great.
You know, pass around the tip hat, and yeah, my mom said I've been doing the same thing with my life since I was 6. So I haven't changed much.
Okay.
But
so
I have better equipment now.
Okay. But so that is just your way of being.
It's just always been my way of being.
Okay.
You know, like if there's a lot of people somewhere, like I bring a sketchbook just in case I don't want to talk.
So are you one of those rare people who have no stage fright, no anxiety about going on stage?
I thought I did, you know, because I started drinking pretty young. But like when I quit drinking, like I don't have stage fright at all. I think I have like more fright when I'm off stage.
Wow.
When I'm just home.
That's amazing that you thought you had stage fright when you were drinking. When people usually drink to get rid of their stage fright,
well,
but when you
I think
got
I just
sober,
did it first anyway, and I was like, oh, this makes sense because of course I'll have stage fright.
Right.
You know.
That's weird and
it's totally
interesting.
Weird.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So now that you're sober, you just want to perform, and you just like can't wait to do it. And do you ever feel, if you get a unreceptive audience, which sometimes happens,
that's fun.
Then what do you do? Yeah, how do you handle that?
I talk to them.
Okay.
And I ask them why they're having such a bad time.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, that's just my face. And then I'm like, aw, you know, we make them part of the show.
Right. But that's one person, you know, like.
Yeah. But usually it's not all of them.
No, I guess so.
You know, unless you're in Sweden. And then,
then it's all of them.
Yeah. I had a woman in Sweden come up to the merch booth after and like buy everything. And she's like, that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And I was like, you could have fooled me.
Right.
And she was like, oh, you know, I was dancing on the inside.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think I may be Swedish.
Yeah.
Because I dance on the inside all the time.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm too self-aware to be dancing too much. I dance sometimes, but
the first show, like I used to always dance at shows, and then in 2000 I went and saw the Strokes, like before they were big, at this like tiny bar called the 5 Spot in Philly. And I was like, these guys rip, you know, and I'm like dancing. And then I look around and everybody's looking at me like I was covered in blood. And that's when I first knew what a hipster was. I'm like, oh, these are hipsters.
Hipsters don't dance.
They don't dance.
Yes, I was actually talking about about a block away from here at the Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan studios. There's a club that's under construction. And when I was in high school, it was called the Anti-Club.
Okay.
And it was full of hipsters and nobody danced. It was a club.
Yeah.
And there were music, but people didn't dance.
Yeah, because they were anti.
Yeah, exactly. We watched.
Who did you see play there?
Oh, people that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's all right. They're hopefully still alive, but people may be dead. I'm not sure.
People may be dead.
They may be dead. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today is because I was struck with, this show is about me communicating, talking about my problems.
Yeah.
And this is one of my problems.
I love talking about other people's problems.
Well, this is good. Yes, I got plenty. I feel as though I'm busy. I'm a busy guy. But I'm not always productive. Like I am busy. I have stuff to do from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I'm not always sure I have anything to show for that day other than, I did buy more toilet paper or something like that.
Well, that's a tiny win.
Yeah, I guess so. But it doesn't feel like had I not bought more toilet paper
you would have blew it.
Spent that time. No, I spent that time doing something important.
I hear that.
I feel like, that would have been better. Somebody else would have gotten toilet paper. I would have stolen toilet paper.
Yeah.
Something else could have happened if I needed toilet paper, but at least I would have done that other thing. So,
but would you have?
Procrastination.
Yeah.
So sometimes doing things is an act of procrastination.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the thing that you're not doing. The thing that you're doing instead of the thing you should be doing, or maybe that productive thing, that's the thing that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So are you doing all the shit that you do to procrastinate, or are you doing all the stuff that you do to create?
I think it's 50-50.
Okay.
Like when I had to, before I came here to LA to meet with you, I had to write like on my packing list, bring contact lenses, bring chargers, do not bring art supplies, because I'm not here to make art. But I know that if I got one thing in my brain where like I'm writing this thing and it's not working, I'd be like, ooh, I want to mess around with some like neon orange. And that's procrastination. But sometimes though, those procrastination moments end up being little sellable drawings.
Right.
But I really have to like tell myself like, no.
Right. And part of creating is letting things develop in your mind. Like the baking, there's a baking period to every good idea or every good thing. And sometimes it's not a matter of just vomiting it out right away. Sometimes it's got to bake.
Yep.
So it's hard to know whether the orange that you've set aside is the thing that's going to help you get it done, or whether coloring with the orange is actually the thing that's going to help you, is a better thing to get it done. In other words, you'll
I think it's a nice way to procrastinate rather than just sitting there frozen and being like, I suck, and like talking on the phone.
Right.
Unless you need somebody to talk on the phone with to like talk, let you know you don't suck.
I feel like talking on the phone isn't a good form of letting ideas bake, because your mind is going somewhere else. But like the reason people get great ideas in the shower or other things is because they are doing a physical activity and their brain is centered on that physical activity. So the brain is off the problem and onto some physical being moment, and the subconscious is free to sort of think a little bit.
I think that's what people need to remember too. Like the baking period, like that's a good way to not beat yourself up, is like if you just remind yourself like, oh, like I'm gardening, but I'm really writing.
Right.
Because it's like something you could do that's physical that doesn't require tons of thought,
Right.
So, I mean, with the show that we talked about, like I let that bake for a year, and there were times where I'm like, God, I really need to get it together. But all of the times that I was doing other things, once I sat down, it's like that's when I got all those ideas. They just weren't all done in one fell swoop.
Well, a lot of the show, it's interesting. Nicole and I are working on a show. A lot of the show is based on her life, and it's based on stuff. But the thing about it is you had such a crazy, wild, and varied, interesting life that picking out the things that go in the show has become the problem. Like the problem is what to cut away and what to include. It's not that there isn't enough stuff. It's that there's so much stuff.
It's like songwriting. It's the same with making an album.
Yeah.
Like when you sit down and make an album, you're like, shoot, okay, I have 4 like key songs. So you're going to make an album. But then you have 100 half-finished things. And it's like, what gets paid attention to? But I think when you give yourself time limits, that's always good.
For sure.
If you give yourself a deadline, it's like everything just kind of hits at the end.
I heard Ed Sheeran talk yesterday saying that he goes into the studio, I assume a songwriting studio, every day from 10 to 6 o'clock every day.
Like a business guy.
Yeah. And he'll come out with 1 song a day.
Huh.
And it's like, and he
That's
says,
cool.
Most of them he throws away.
Yeah.
Most of them aren't good. But he says, like, if I come up with a great song once a month after doing 30 song or however many he does, then he's satisfied with that.
Yeah, that's not a great batting average.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah.
If I came up with if I worked every day and a song every day,
and
I threw away
a month,
I threw away 29 songs and kept 1 song, I'd be furious.
And it was the one that Ed Sheeran keeps.
Yeah,
man, I'd start washing dishes.
Well, there you go. It's really hard. I guess it's hard. I guess my main point, it's hard to be Ed Sheeran.
It is really hard to be Ed Sheeran.
You have to work really hard to be Ed Sheeran.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah, in some way, but happy in others. He seems to be a happy bloke.
He does.
Yeah.
Did you hear like the thing that he sends like giant stone penis sculptures to his friends?
Yeah, I heard about that.
That made me kind of like him.
Yeah, I like him. I thought whatever that song, that Thinking Out Loud song's pretty good. It's fine.
I don't know it.
It's fine. He got a lawsuit because somebody said it was like a Marvin Gaye song. Let's Get It On.
Yeah,
and it is the same bass line, but it's not the same song.
Yeah,
and I don't know. You should be sued for the bass line.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't think
was
so.
the bass player paid?
Yeah, the bass player was paid
for
but
the
it's
original.
Oh no,
That's what makes me wonder. It's like wait,
that bass player was not paid. But I mean that chord progression is not unique to Marvin Gaye.
No.
So it's one of the things. It's one of those things where it's like you did a story about two star-crossed lovers.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to anybody.
Yeah.
It belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Make it 3.
Well, that's the modern twist. Make it 8 people.
Yeah.
That's the modern twist. That's what we would do right now. So how do you focus? If you're very busy doing a million things, when it's time, you put a time limit on yourself, that helps you focus.
Yeah.
How else can you narrow your focus to actually get shit done?
So I got this here Apple Watch.
Okay.
And I set little timers on it just to make it feel not so overwhelming. So I'll set a timer for 15 minutes and then just start. And then I notice that after the 15 minutes is up, I'm in it.
Right.
But telling myself it's only 15 minutes makes it less daunting.
That is a classic productivity hack.
Tool, that I was just told about. And I was like, this is great.
Which is great, which is offer yourself a bite-sized doable thing.
Yeah.
And then do that bite-sized doable thing.
Yeah.
And for the reason why people like the bite-sized doable thing is because what looms ahead over them like the sword of Damocles is failure.
Yeah, and also it just seems too big, and it seems like when you have a bunch of ideas that you need to figure out like how to get to the heart of it, it seems like a messy room. Right. And it's like, where do you start? So if you just set 15 minutes, it's like, okay, I'm just going to start over here. You don't get too precious about it. Right. And then you usually keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's smart to take things a little piece at a time. It's smart to give yourself time limits to work. It's also, when you're doing that, you also set aside your inner critic. Yeah. Because it's not about whether it's good or not. It's whether you're working.
Doing it or not.
Just doing it. Mm-hmm. And so it can be shit. And it's okay if it sucks. It's just, I've done the work. And I always feel like if I do that work, I get a sense of satisfaction.
Totally. Because I mean, that's the thing though you have to tell yourself that you just reminded me of is like telling yourself it can be shit. Right. Because especially like for an album, like I put so much pressure on it. It's like, no, this has to be like, that's why I paint because I don't care. Right. But the song, it's like, oh my God, a 4th grader looks like I wrote this, like, right. But if I did it without any expectations, I wouldn't care. Right. But when you put the expectation, if you can get rid of the expectation, then you're set up to have a productive day.
Are you working on an album now?
Yeah.
And how is that going?
It's the messy room. Okay. But the concept is there.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, in 2023 or 2024, whenever this album comes out, are people still buying albums?
My fans are, but they're kind of older. So I'm like, shoot. You need to pass on the love of buying vinyl to your children. Right. But
I mean, I'm not even in a digital form. Do people care about the 11 songs?
I think the hardcore fans do. Okay. But most people don't. Like I even was out last night and I ran into some people that I worked with on an album way back in the day. And they were like, so like, do you have any other albums? And like inner me was like, yeah, fucking 3 albums, you motherfucker. Right. But, yeah, there are people that care. And I think, as long as I care,
Right.
then I don't care if other people care.
But it's kind of like, for me, I work in TV, and when TV morphs and changes, and, you know, in the old days there were variety shows, those kind of variety shows don't exist anymore.
I wish that they
Me
did.
too. I sure do.
That's my dream job.
But they don't. And then I worked on sitcoms, and sitcoms are kind of dead right now. But I mean, the multi-camera sitcoms, now it's only single cameras kind of sitcoms, which is fine. But
What's that, like The Office? Is that a single camera thing?
Yeah, anything that looks like a movie is a single camera show. A multi-camera show looks like a play that they filmed.
I think I like the single camera better.
Cheers. Anything that with the laugh track with an audience, filmed in front of an audience is multicam.
Okay.
Even though they do use more than one camera on a single camera show, so it's a misnomer. But the idea is that I pride myself in saying, well, the market has changed, so I'm going to change with it and create in the form that people are watching now versus the form that people used to watch it.
True.
So I at some point, whether people care about albums conceptually, like this album, 11 songs, they are 11 separate songs, but ideally they have some thematic story thing that comes with them, and you can sort of maybe tonally they match somehow. They're of a piece.
And that's the hard thing about putting it together.
Right.
Is that, you'll have like, wait, where does this country song go? It doesn't fit, you know, and trying to make things fit.
But I mean, is that something you say, oh, well, I'll put that on my next country themed album? Yeah,
or I'll change it a little bit to make it fit.
Right.
Like my 2 records ago, that record I did, Goodnight Rhonda Lee, I was trying to make a soul record. Right. But I didn't want it to be like, like soul music that sounded like everybody else's soul music.
Right.
So I had a bunch of country songs that I'm like, I'm not going to make a country record. And then I was listening to Bobby Blue Bland and just started singing one of my country songs to the groove that he had, and it worked. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. I could put these in any format.
Right.
Not
everything's interchangeable.
Not everything is.
Right, but I mean...
But country music is very interchangeable, and it's very easy to write.
I guess so. Why is it so easy to write?
I think it's just the like this, that standard melody of like, verse, chorus, verse, bridge.
I always think country music is almost more about lyrics than about the music. And usually country music is trying to be funny or smart. Not every country song, but a lot of the greatest country songwriters are writing something smart and interesting, and sort of like lyrically they're challenging, and sometimes they use quips or puns and but I don't hear that a lot in modern a lot of other kind of music, and I drift towards standards and great songwriters, so I like country music for that reason.
I love old country music, but I don't for that reason.
But melodically, sometimes they're more interesting than others. But I agree. I guess
if you slow it down, it could be soul.
Right. Okay.
That's the thing. You just slow it down a little bit.
Well, there have been lots of songs that have covered by a country artist and also covered by a soul group, and both been hits. Yeah. Many, many times. Yeah. So you're
like Candy Staten's "Stand By Your Man." That's my favorite version.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's that song "I Swear" by I forgot. I swear by the moon Boyz and the stars up above. Yeah. It was originally a guy named something McDonald it was a country song.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I mean, there's that kind of crossover from in the 80s and 90s and even in the 2020s.
I had a dream one night that I was singing November Rain from Guns N' Roses as like a Conway Twitty duet.
Okay.
In a castle in the dream. But and so I recorded it and I had Mark Lanigan sing on it. But I'm like, wow, all of these hair metal songs from the 80s, they really work as like old school country songs.
It's interesting that I don't think there is. I'm of an age where there's not a single Guns N' Roses song that hits me in the right spot.
Listen to November Rain, our version.
Okay. I will. That'll be your version, not the Guns N' Roses version.
I think I just had this argument the other night. Yeah. Somebody else said that about Guns N' Roses. Yeah. There's just so many little parts of things.
I'm happy to be shown the magic of something. And sometimes it does take an artist's cover of a song for me to really come around to it.
Totally.
I heard Richard Thompson's version of a Britney Spears, I think it was "Hit Me Baby One More Time." And his version of it,
I hear his voice in my head now doing that. It's
made me
creepy.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, even like with music now, like pop music now, it's so like the vocals are interchangeable because they're so treated. So you can't tell who's singing what, or like, you know, is this Halsey or is this got, like, you just don't know.
Right.
And so a Paris Hilton song came on from '07. And the melody, like I remember when it came out, I'm like, this is dog shit. And then like it came on the other day and I was like, this is melodically solid compared to what's going on today because it's very atonal.
Right.
So
right. I
made me feel old.
Yeah. Get used to it.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
I am.
It's if you're here for a while and you really care about music, you feel old pretty quickly because you know, I grew up in the 70s and loved me, and I have an enormous record collection. At least for me, it may be small compared to you, but I had something like 15,000 albums, just vinyl albums. And then when CDs came out, I started collecting CDs, and I have thousands of CDs.
Yeah.
And then
what about tapes? Did you skip tapes?
I had cassette tapes, but I didn't buy albums on cassette tapes. I made mixtapes and all that kind of, but so I had hundreds of mixtapes and all that kind of stuff. And now I have none of it. It's all in storage. And I listen to, you know, my computer and my phone.
I say you take a choice group of the records out. This is a good way to relax. And put them at your house and have like each night will be an album night.
Yeah.
Where you like sit and have dinner at a table and listen to the album.
Okay, but
that's a good way to do it.
Isn't it to me, if I had an album night like that, really dedicated it, I would think it's like one of those things, the bite size, it's doable for an album, but I have so many records.
Just pick one.
That pick, of course, but it's like I'm overwhelmed by the amount of choices I have, and so I'll never do it. Also, what else could I be doing that night? Yeah,
or you could have friends over though, and like have everybody submit what album they want to listen to. Pick it from a bowl. You pick one each week.
Do you listen with friends?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. In Brooklyn, we used to have record listening night. It was a Sunday night thing that this guy Mike did, and he would pick an album from like the group, and then he'd pick an album because it's his house. 2 albums were too many, but one album, just sitting there and listening to it, side A and side B, kind of focused. He put some crayons out on the floor and stuff.
And what happened at the end? Did you talk about the album?
Yeah, we talked about it, but it was also like, it was, you know, even though you were listening to a record, it gave me so many ideas, and there was like crayons and paper on the floor, so I wrote them down while I was listening to the record. So like active listening can really help you, because it lets your subconscious go. Did this guy Mike have a lot of great things, interesting criticism and commentary on it? Everybody just talked about how they personally felt just by listening to an album. It was more about like the individual than like, oh, I really like the drum sound on the blah blah blah. But like you said, how they felt. That music is very emotional. Yeah. And it does bring up feelings. And so it's kind of personal. And so listening in a group to something, I might be even afraid of the feelings I got in this group while I listening to something. The lights were low. So that was good. Cause you do, like, you feel super vulnerable. Like, hey, I'm in a room with like half these people are strangers. And I hope I don't make a stupid face, like while I'm listening to this record. But once the record started, like he picked one of my picks, which was Traffic, John Barleycorn Must Die. Okay. And I just remember sitting when I was like in 5th grade listening to that album, and I didn't do anything else while I was listening to it. Well, that says the kind of 5th grader you were. You were a 5th grader in 1980 something? No, 1990. Okay, 1990. And not Traffic. Not a lot of other 5th graders not listen to Traffic. Yeah, I actually went to buy a New Kids on the Block tape because I wanted to fit in. Right. Okay. And my uncle was like, do you like this stuff? And I was like, no, but everybody does. And he was like, you should get this album. You'll like it. Do you like them now, New Kids on the Block? No. Okay. See, that to me, I mean, I don't dislike them. It takes time. 20 years later, I can give them a chance and then like them. Like I wouldn't like them in the moment because there's a lot of baggage, sociological baggage tied to certain artists, and you don't want to maybe be perceived as somebody who fits in with any kind of particular group. But time is a great healer of that. So. Yeah, I remember the one time I did like them was when we had a roller skating party. They're great music to roller skate to. Yeah, but that was it. Yeah, I don't know. They're I'm trying to the new Kids on the Block were my least favorite of the boy bands. The idea of a boy band, I was just like, this is stupid. You know, like there's so many, and especially when MTV, it was like, you know, there's so many weird, cool characters like on TV. It's like, oh, these guys won a contest in a mall.
Right.
That just wasn't appealing to me.
Yeah. I've always said, and this is absolutely true, I have the musical taste of a 14-year-old girl. So I will, there are definitely boy band things that I absolutely love.
Okay.
New Kids on the Block were the least interesting to me. They seemed like the one that they were forcing down my throat, where the other ones sort of like had more fun. NSYNC had a little bit more fun to them. Yeah. And what was the other one, the big one that played I Want It That Way? And
isn't that NSYNC? Oh, Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys.
I played poker with those guys once.
All of them? All five?
Just like 3 of them.
Okay, yeah.
That was cool.
Great guys, right?
Yeah, they were really nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won $2,500 on a slot machine right before my set.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I felt rich.
Led Zeppelin. Did you, when you were in 5th grade,
Big time. Changed my life.
Loving Led Zeppelin.
9 years old, and my brother moved in. I have 2 older half brothers, and my 16-year-old brother moved in with us. He had a waterbed and a wall-sized Zeppelin poster and AC/DC poster.
Right.
And it just changed my life.
That's great.
Yeah. I was his mascot.
I was not able to listen to Led Zeppelin until I was in my 20s.
Really?
Yep.
Because you didn't like it?
Yeah. Because I also felt they represented something creepy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just, something gross. And so I couldn't get the grossness out of my head until, and listen to the music until much later.
See, I didn't know about the grossness. I just like saw the movie, The Song Remains the Same. And I was like, oh, they like wizards. And so I was like, I like wizards too. You know, it was just like, I listened to Led Zeppelin and like went to the mall and bought a bunch of pewter wizards.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I was a kid, it's like you hear about them abusing women and stuff like that.
Oh, with the
like,
shark meat and stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's probably not a group I want to like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really pay attention to that part.
Yeah, I don't. I'm, you know, now, again, time, separate the artist from the art. I can do that better now.
Because at the time, like, even like being 9 years old and seeing like groupies on, you know, MTV and like a Bon Jovi video and they all are like, yeah, and they got like their boobs out. And I was just like, man, those girls look so cool. You know, like.
Okay, that's a good reaction.
But I was like, I'm going to have to learn how to play guitar because I'm never going to look like one of those girls.
Yeah, you don't want to be the background
girls either. But I want to be included.
Yeah, I want to be included. But I think that being the background model girl isn't what anybody wants to be.
No, I wasn't like agile enough to like dance on a car. So I had to learn how to play guitar.
But I mean, do you think, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those girls who were dancing on the cars loved it and they would do it in a heartbeat again.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I've met some women that like have done that like back in the day and they were like, oh, it's a blast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've never been pretty enough to be that kind of prop.
Same.
So it's like, so I don't know what it's like, but I always feel like there's some kind of usurial, you know, bargain about that I'm not crazy about.
I mean, when I first got interested in boys, like I was 12 and like I found a guitar in my attic and I was like, if I can rip the solo from Heartbreaker, I'm going to get that dude, you know?
That's an interesting thought because I know that boys learn musical instruments thinking that they can get girls.
I'm like a boy.
But did you really attract a boy by being great at guitar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things changed.
All right. But I mean, it's interesting.
Because it opened the door for me to talk to them, and then they just saw how.
But that's different. You were like in their club.
Was.
It got you to be able to be in the club.
Remember the movie Some Kind of Wonderful?
Yeah.
With the girl drummer. Mm-hmm. Like I saw that movie, I'm like, that's me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was always in my head. You know, I was like, oh, he's going to come around after he stops dating the cheerleader and like realize he loves me. But you know, usually that didn't happen. But it was really exciting to think about life that way.
Sure. If you can think about life only in terms of John Hughes movies, you'll do well.
Yeah.
Life will be good.
Yeah, I did for a long time.
So that's good. All right. So you're writing an album. You're writing this show with me.
Uh-huh.
So do you feel focused these days?
On those two things, yeah.
Okay.
Finally.
All right.
But yeah, it's just everything else. Like you talk about, like even like going to somebody else's show. I'm like, I shouldn't be here.
Right.
You know.
And in the world of writing a show that we're writing together, that's a new kind of world for you.
Yeah, that was like, I know what I'm doing, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, so for a year I could tell friends like, hey, what do you think of this? Blah, blah, blah. And they'd laugh and like, they'd be like, that's cool. But the physical act of writing it down, like I had like 20 notebooks, phone apps, like all these things everywhere. And that was torture. Like sitting down to like just write the pilot outline was torture.
Right.
Because I'm in my head going, you don't know how to type, like, you don't know how to type a paper.
Right. So there's a critical voice in there saying this is not good.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you don't know what's good or bad.
No.
So that's why it's more like being lost in the wilderness a little bit and just like, I'm just going to write a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And then see what, it's all about feedback and rewriting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I didn't even have anybody read it until like I came to see you right before.
Okay.
I was like, maybe I should have someone read this. And I had my friend that came over to the porch and she's laughing as she reads it. And I was like, that's a good sign. And then I did a lap around the house. Like, I think she likes it. And so that was good.
Most writers, when they give their thing to somebody, a comedy thing to somebody, and they hear your giggle, they went, what's that? They want to know exactly what was funny. What was funny? What was good?
But she did it several times.
Good.
And then I was like, and then another friend came over and he read it and did the same thing. And he was like, if I didn't know you, I would watch this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, good.
But also there's this thing which people do when they're reading something and they go, ugh. And you're just like, whoa, I don't want to hear that.
That's usually my husband.
Yeah, okay.
He gives me the real, you know, but I love it because the thing is, if I really believe in something, like I will fight to prove him wrong.
Right.
And then sometimes he's right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's great.
That was the hardest lesson for me to learn as a creative person, which is I'm wrong sometimes.
Yeah, but it's the best lesson because it frees you from like, you know.
Yeah, but I thought I was right.
Yeah.
I really did. I thought I was right. I thought this is...
I never think I'm right.
Yeah.
You know, like, unless it's like something I'll go over a few times and feel comfortable with the person to prove it to them.
Yeah.
But like everything I do when I give it to somebody, I'm like, is this bad?
Right.
Is this bad? Like, that'll be my memoir name. Is that bad?
No, it's not bad. In when you're touring and when you're performing and stuff, does being scattered helpful? Like, if having a million things to do helpful to then get back to the thing you're doing? In other words, I'm a little ADD, so sometimes
I'm ADD too.
It's very helpful to me to have a couple different things going at the same time, so I can go to this and then go back to this. But it's also poison because then I'm like not doing anything. I'm doing this, and this, and this.
Well, touring is great because you have a set schedule every day and you have like a common goal at night. You have to perform for an hour and a half.
Right.
But it's all the stuff before it and after it.
Right. But, the common, everybody has to have stalkers, get to the drug dealer, like all the things that people do on tour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The drug dealer, like,
ruin a hotel room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, ours is like find the murder motel, pray that there's no like weird shit in the sheets, and that the car doesn't break down.
Yeah. Do you have control over where you're staying and that kind of stuff?
I do. I book all the hotels because it's like free shopping.
Right. Okay.
You know, like I take my time with it. I find like the nicest amenities for the price we have.
Right.
And
that's a whole business in and of itself is to figuring out.
Well, that's what a tour manager does. But I'm like, I would rather save the money on a tour manager than just do it myself because it's shopping.
So you do all that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to gather the musicians, gather the travel plans, figure out where you're going to stay, how you're going to get there, figure out what the house, which places you're going to play at.
My agent does that.
Okay, and then who collects the money?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you take it in a briefcase full of cash like Chuck Berry?
No, but I did have a thing happen in Nashville where this guy it was during the pandemic and he was like, hey, you want to do a gig and it was like, you know, for $4,000 and it's for my investors at the supermarket. Like he does hotels and he's like, it'll be masked. It'll be, you know, distanced, all this stuff. And he had me and another songwriter friend of mine like do it, and then he gave us each a check for $5, and we were like, sweet. And it was not masked, it was close, it was horrible, but we didn't get COVID, thankfully. And then the check bounced and I was like, motherfucker, can I curse on this?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the guy had just bought a new hotel and he was like, hey, you know, I don't know. I think he asked me if I had weed or something, and I like brought him over a joint in a Christmas card.
Okay.
And he was like, you know, you're the only person that gave me a Christmas card this year. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, I want to change. And I was like, whoa, this is getting deep. And he was like, I just want to be somebody who's like, shows up somewhere and people are excited to see him. And I was like, fair.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, have you ever read that book, The Four Agreements? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, the first rule in it is always be true to your word. And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, so let's practice that right now.
Right.
Let's go over to your checkbook and you write me a check that won't bounce. And it just like, winked it in and kind of like jived him. And he was like, all right. And then I get to the bank and they're like, yeah, we can't cash this. And so I call him and I'm like, I'm not leaving this bank. And he's like, oh, it's in trust, whatever. And finally makes it happen. But then I have people around our fire pit in our backyard. And my friend that was the other artist, he came with his manager who's in his band. And I was like, hey, did you ever get paid? And he was like, no. And then the manager was like, I was trying to shield you from this. And I was like, dude, and I told him how I did. And I was like, he's got a new hotel down the street. Just like roll up with a couple baseball bats, be like, that looks like $5,000 worth of windows. What do you want to do? Come on.
So he was true to his word briefly.
For me, he was, because I told him to.
Yeah.
But
not a person that people would be excited to see.
No.
I never thought about it one way or the other, whether people would be excited to see me or not. That's an interesting...
I don't think about that either.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly people are unexcited to see him. That's on his mind.
I think everybody's pretty unexcited to see me until proven otherwise, and then I'm still suspect.
Oh, that's not true.
But if I think that way, I'm always pleasantly surprised.
But that's not true. Why would you think that?
Why do you think
people are going to be unexcited to see you?
It's just a good baseline because they might have other things going on in their lives.
Oh, well, do you think that you bring to the table some fun energy?
Oh, totally.
Okay, so if you're just walking in the door and saying, hey guys, why do you think people would be unexcited to see you?
Because when they're like, hey Nicole, and I'm like, oh yay, the day's better than I thought it would be. I set my bar really low.
All right, but I mean, that's like, then you're just like, if I don't break my leg, then it's a good day. It's like, I don't know.
Kinda.
All right. I don't know.
I think so when I fell in that sinkhole.
Yes.
I fell in an actual real sinkhole.
So now, for the audience's sake, people talk about having fallen into a hole in a bad time of their lives.
Yeah.
And they talk about it metaphorically. You actually fell into a sinkhole.
Yeah, I woke up in the bottom of like an 8-foot sinkhole.
Right.
And didn't break anything. So that kind of changed my perspective greatly. Like the first thing that happened after that was... our van broke down in Detroit in front of a waste management plant. So it just was like shit everywhere, but no one died. The van was going to get fixed. And the drummer was like, you're being very calm about all this. And I'm like, dude, it could have been so much worse. We're fine.
Right.
So I just don't get too fluffed up about stuff.
All right. That's good. I think as a friend of yours, I would like to think that you have a better attitude about yourself, a better self-image than think but
I don't think people are going to
be unexcited when I walk into a room.
Yeah, but I mean like in the literal term of excited.
Okay.
Like if I walked in the room and somebody was like, oh my God, it's you.
Right.
Like that would be excited.
Okay. Yeah.
But if somebody's like, what's up?
Right. But
that's just normal.
Okay, so that's different. But you're okay. You believe people might be happy to see you.
I don't believe that people would be unhappy to see me.
Okay, all right.
Except for like 2 people. But that's their problem.
Right. Is it their problem?
It is.
I have them here. They're coming out and they'll tell you exactly why they're unhappy to see you. So have you helped me figure out how busy...
I feel like I'm only giving you one tip.
I will tell you this, that if you give me... My wife says this all the time. If my wife gives me an assignment, like...
Okay, what does she give you?
She'll say, hey, do you mind running to the drugstore for me to get this thing?
Yeah.
I will say absolutely and hop in the car. And I would love to do errands all day long and could do errands all day long.
Because it's a real thing. It's a tangible thing.
Here's the job, I get it done, and I feel a sense of accomplishment to having gotten that thing done. But
which is different.
It's very low. It's the accomplishment of it is a very low bar. That's like it's not the same as I've finished a script or I've written a song or I've performed or I've helped a charity or something else. There's the sense of satisfaction I can get from doing other things would be much higher.
Totally. I think I keep a lot of lists and that really helps me. So it's like for the week, if you look at if you plan your week, every Sunday is like my journal night.
Okay.
So it's like TV night and journal. And
what do you do in the journal on a Sunday night?
I just make 3 things that I want to accomplish that week.
Okay.
And even if it's like not finishing a song, but organizing all the songs I've started into a list.
Okay.
That's a win.
Okay, so this Sunday night, I would go to the Journal and say, I have to get a journal. That would be my first thing.
Well,
is
while
getting
you're
a
running
journal.
errands for your wife at the drugstore, pick yourself up a journal.
Right. I know I'm bad with journals. I used to journal. I used to do that, write like an artist thing, and I would journal every day. It was like 5 pages a day.
Yeah, like the artist way.
Artist way, exactly.
Yeah.
And just like spill out stuff. And I felt really, ultimately, very unproductive after the end of that too.
Yeah,
like
I did that too.
I spent so much time writing in journals. Like, don't stop, write all your thoughts, and I did I did it every day. And then I felt like, well, what have I got?
Yeah,
this is not helping me. It doesn't help me create.
I find that just like going through like your day and living life and just writing things down in the journal randomly, because those are things that you write down that pique your interest.
Right.
Enough to write them down.
Well, I have that. I do write that on my
That's
phone.
the journal.
I have a phone as my journal.
Yeah.
So
I do the same.
Yeah.
But then like if I put it in my like written journal, that's commitment. So it's like the ideas are in the phone and the ones you want to keep are in the journal.
I have a totally separate question. That's totally. This is just a question, a period of a show we call Question Time.
Okay.
And there's a theme.
Question time.
It's question time.
That could be the theme.
Yeah.
My son has written a theme for Question Time, but that's a good one too. The question I have for you, since you've met so many great artists through being an artist, who's the coolest people that you've met?
Oh, okay. Coolest people that I've met.
Yeah, kind of like dream come true. You say they don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
But you've met a few heroes.
Nick Cave was a total sweetheart.
Right.
And really nice. I remember being so afraid to like, what are we going to do when we meet Nick Cave?
Right.
You know? And then the first show, like I'm outside smoking and this guy's like, do you have a light? And I was like, there he is. It's happening now. And he was just so sweet.
Yeah.
Like made me a smoothie.
Okay.
And like spun me around when I was like lost in the Masonic temple. Like really sweet. And his whole crew looked like terrifying people that will kill you.
Right.
And they were all teddy bears.
Oh,
and
that's
like
nice.
me and the drum tech would do drawings together, and we bought them all hot sauce from Buffalo.
Why do you think nice people dress like they're terrifying, horrible people?
Maybe because they're lazy. I don't know. Like,
No, but I mean, there's a vibe and
I
a
don't know
look
if
of people who
I don't
look
know
like
if it's
they're
a
good.
dressing thing. It's more of a face thing.
Oh, I see.
You know, it's like I got a big long beard and I have like eyes that are very like focused and almost
Right.
mean seeming.
Mean, sad eyes.
You know, it's a defense mechanism so you can get your work done. Because
Okay.
usually crew people have to be there from morning to night. They have
Right.
the hardest job of anybody. I think even harder than anything.
Yeah, crew's being
And-
very, very, very tough.
Yeah, they're the first out of bed and the last to be
Which
in
is
it.
why people don't always last in those positions. But yeah,
No,
that's just-
I mean, my husband's a crew person, and I'm
Right.
just like, I hope you live a long time
Mm-hmm.
because you are just running on empty all the time. But yeah, I find that
Nick Cave was the greatest sort of
He was-
happy meeting.
yeah, I mean Elvis Costello too.
Right.
It's funny because the people that you hear that can be like very sharp tongued, they're usually the nicest. It's the people that are like, oh girl, I want to lay you down on a bed of roses or some shit like that. Those are the people that might like chop you up and put you in their basement.
Right, but that's in sync. And you said they were very nice.
No, that was Backstreet Boys.
Oh, Backstreet Boys, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know NSYNC.
Yeah, no,
But we were playing poker, so like it was nice enough.
Yeah, I know Joey Fatone and Lance Bass.
Okay,
and they're very nice.
seem very nice.
They're very nice.
Joey
yes.
Fatone is a nice Italian boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
They call him the fat one. It's spelled
Yeah.
fat one. It's still he's adorable.
I want to hang out with the fat
yeah,
one.
he's good.
Yeah.
He's good. I've had good experiences meeting my heroes and then really shitty experiences meeting my heroes. And none of them is the fault of anybody else but me. A lot of it is with the baggage I bring to that conversation. The conversation that can't happen. Probably the conversation you didn't have with Elvis Costello, which is you're working with Elvis Costello, so it was easy to just hang around.
But we weren't working together when we first met.
Right.
You know, like when we first met, I had a weird week of like him just popping up in conversation. And I'm like, what does this mean? It means I need to sing with him. And I'm like, what am I talking about? And then he shows up in my dressing room. Great voice. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk.
Right, but that's the the glorious way to meet Elvis Costello
That's what
is
LA
somebody
people
coming,
would call manifesting.
yeah, is coming to you to say you are cool.
Yeah.
Like if Elvis Costello came to me to tell me I'm cool, then everything would be fine.
You should be like, I know. I'm so glad you finally see it.
Because the only interaction I've had with Elvis Costello, well, I've had a few, but many interactions, and all of them sort of hover around me, either saying or decidedly not saying, "You're great and your music's great and it's meant so much to me." Like that, that kind of one-way interaction that there is no response to. That's nothing Elvis Costello can say if somebody says that, other than, well, "Thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed it," but it doesn't open a conversation. It's the conversation ender. And so I've done both. I've completely ignored Elvis Costello and just talked about the room we're in or whatever. And other times I've come to him and said, like a drooling fan, "You're so fantastic." Neither one were great. So
for me, like, musicians are just easy to talk to because I am one, you know, so it doesn't seem like, ooh, what are you going to talk about? You know, but when I meet,
you
like,
guys talk about picks,
actors and comedians, I'm like, yarf. Like, I remember meeting Jermaine from the Flight of Conchords. Super nice guy. But like, anybody that can do comedy and music, that's amazing to me. Like, that's just so cool. And the only thing I could say to him was, he was like, "Oh, I liked your song tonight." And I'm like, "Thanks. New Zealand's really far away." And then I got in my Uber and I'm like, stupid.
All right. So here's another question for question time.
Okay.
This is a randomized question that's from a list. So you're going to have to pick a letter between A through G.
That's it?
And a number between 1 and 18.
Okay, G14.
All right. The question at G14 is, getting there? Oh, it is. This is a big question.
Okay.
All right. But you have to answer it as best of your ability.
Okay.
Why do we exist in this particular universe?
Oh, I know the answer.
Okay.
To find out more about love and to party.
Okay. That's what this universe is about.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right. And are they the same thing? Partying and finding out about love?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when you find out more about love, you feel better and you're able to party more.
Okay. What have you found out about love so far?
That there's lots of different forms of love, you know, and there's love in everything.
What's the strangest form of love that you've found thus far?
Oh gosh, strangest form of love.
I mean, yeah.
Self-love.
Okay.
That's been the strangest thing.
All right. Interesting. Have you learned to love yourself pretty well?
I'm learning to be nicer to myself.
Okay.
And to like be appreciative of the thing. Like, I feel like if I don't dig what I'm doing, no one else is going to dig it. So.
Right. So what are you loving about yourself now that maybe you didn't love 10 years ago?
I mean, my hair, obviously.
I was going to say, everybody here was talking about how they love your hair.
It's really great hair. Yeah.
All right.
My nose. Never loved my nose.
So that was the thing? Like,
now.
Physically, you were worried about your physicality.
Well, my grandmother would always be like, you know, when I die, I'm going to leave you $2,000 to fix your nose. And I'd be like, what's wrong with my nose?
Right.
You know?
So you didn't have a problem with your nose until grandma started criticizing your nose, and then you worried about it.
Well, it was grandma and most of the people in my school. And
that's the thing they picked on you about?
Oh,
was your
weird.
nose?
Yeah, you know, it's messed up. I went to Catholic school and their like mean nickname for me was Anne Frank. Wow. And I was just like, you guys are fucked up. So it didn't even make me feel bad. It just made me know I was like in a room of tyrants, you know?
Because your nose was a Jewish nose? Is that why?
My nose is an Italian nose, but it looks Jewish, but who cares?
Okay, but I'm saying like that's the Anne Frank of it all. It's not like you should be buried in an attic somewhere.
No.
Okay, all right. I want to get the full measure of the insult.
A very like racist, you know,
so
Irish Catholic school.
Yeah, anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, well, I'm used to that. That's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, even just my disorganization, I've learned to kind of accept that because, like, in a pinch, I can MacGyver the shit out of anything,
right? Because
of all of the random shit I have around me, you know. So if something breaks.
So in an emergency,
I'm awesome in an emergency.
You go to you.
Yeah.
But in normal times,
in calm times, don't go to me.
Don't go to you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So working with you, I should create little emergencies.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know something.
If you got problems, I got solutions.
Okay. There you go. Okay. That's very good to know. Now we've asked a few questions. I'm going to go to the next question part of our show, which is called listener mail.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun.
Now it's time for listener mail.
So this is a real question from a real viewer.
You should use that. You've got mail.
There's another podcast that uses that.
Really?
Yes. There's another podcast. There's a woman named Kira Swisher, who's a big deal podcaster. And I listen to her podcast and they do like a thing, but you've got mail.
What if you put it in like a demon voice?
You've got mail.
You've got mail.
We could do that. But then we have to do that as part of the listener mail theme and put it on top. Yeah, sure. If I got somebody who would do my music that was willing to do put more work in it than the 2 seconds my son put into it.
Tell your son you're not going to feed him.
Right.
Until he does.
To be fair, I paid him nothing. So what I got was free music for nothing, and that's great.
Other than bringing him up his whole life.
Parents owe their children owe their parents nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I had to do a lot of stuff for my parents.
You didn't have to.
I did though, because my parents are also Sicilian and very big on guilt.
I understand, but but there are kids who go say, no, I'm done.
Not me.
Yeah, not you, but I mean saying like
every Super Bowl Sunday, I had to make all like the football posters for them, and
that
was my contribution to the family.
If you didn't make the football posters for your mom and dad,
I'd be a piece of shit.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be fine, and the world wouldn't judge you. But if your parents starved you and didn't, that would be a crime.
Yes. They didn't do that.
Right.
I'm just
saying that the parents owe children and children don't necessarily owe their parents. They can do for their parents if they want to, but it's a one-way, it's absolutely, they didn't ask to be born. Parents created that person.
Man, I can't think that way though. I have a friend that she always tells her mom, I didn't ask for this. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like.
I don't think that way either. I do a lot for my parents, but I do it knowing that it's choice.
Yeah.
Not a responsibility or an obligation, or it's a choice.
I feel like I'm making up for lost time though, because when I used to drink, I used to just, oh my God.
Yeah.
Now I like make the bed with care when I come to visit.
Oh, that's very nice.
Because I'm like paying them back for lots of lost time.
So here's the question, and this can from a viewer named Joey. Joey, and he said it's a listener. Okay. This is a podcast, so it's a listener named Joey.
Okay.
All right, and he says. Where does your life fulfillment come from in terms of writing? Is it being able to earn a living, living a creative lifestyle, or both? How has fulfillment and its meaning changed over the years? So that's a fascinating question.
That's a great question.
So as a writer, you're a writer. Mm-hmm. Tell me, let's start with that. Does your life fulfillment come in terms of writing? Is it being able to earn a living, or is it the doing anything creative?
Yeah. Well, able to earn a living or success, like lucrative. Mm-hmm. Able to earn, like if I wasn't able to feed myself, things would be different. Right. But on the level that I am, I'm able to feed myself. Mm-hmm. So, but for writing, like before, I would put a lot of, actually, like when I did my first record, I didn't put pressure on myself because it was my first. And then when, awareness came and success came, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that stopped me from creating. And now I feel like I've had this perception shift where it's like I haven't had to have another job in 15 years, which is great.
That's amazing.
And I see a lot of friends of mine having bigger stages, bigger audiences, but I still don't have to work at, like I don't have to go back to school or go work in a paralegal office.
Right.
But so that is success.
Get to work in a paralegal office.
Yes.
That's a pretty sweet job.
It was a horrible job. I did it once.
All right.
But that if I have something to write about that makes me excited, that's the win. Because that's the only thing I can control is how I feel about the work, how I feel about doing the work.
But we've also just been talking about how hard it is sometimes to do the work.
But I think it's more of when I have the idea.
Yeah.
If I have an idea that makes me want to do the work, even though I might procrastinate doing it, that's an exciting thing because I have a purpose.
Well, let's talk about that because that's a fascinating point. When you have an idea that gets you excited right on, that is the perfect moment of excitement because the idea is anything. It's idyllic, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And the more you put flesh on that idea, the shittier it becomes.
Yeah.
And the more you, out of love with it, you fall, and you have to sort of go through this period of like the bad relationship with the idea for a little while until you get to a place where you can start rewriting it and fixing it, and then fixing that relationship, and it come back closer to that moment of falling in love with it.
Oh my God, I have this idea.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a lot like music.
Yeah.
It's a lot like you have the idea, you write the song, you go into the studio, record it, and then you realize, oh my God, those lyrics are shit. Right. So you rewrite them, and then you mix the song, and then you're like, holy crap, this doesn't need a bridge. You take it out. So it's like editing, but
people get scared of that moment when they start falling out of love with the idea of thinking, this is a bad idea, I should change.
Yeah.
And instead of what they should be feeling, which is, no, you're just going through a very normal creative process.
Totally.
And so the question about whether fulfillment comes from writing, eventually it does. When you have this great idea, that's great. When you're finished writing the great idea and it comes out pretty good, that's also great. Yeah,
because you actually did it.
Because you did
the task.
But there's a lot of shit in between those two moments that aren't really fulfilling yet.
And I think, though, that you can only get to that awareness by doing it a lot.
Right.
Like when I make an album, I go through these deep bouts of depression and self-doubt, but now I remember, so I'm like, oh, this is just what you do.
The same thing happens to me. Anytime you make an album, I go through deep depression and self-doubt.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know why. I just feel very connected to your music, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad. Right. I'm glad you could feel that.
Yeah, it's
but
all right.
My husband will even know. He's like, "You're writing a record, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Why? Because I'm being miserable and crazy." And he's like, "Yeah."
Well,
So,
do you get miserable and crazy in that moment? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, almost manic.
All right.
Where like I can't even sleep because every little idea is like an idea.
Yeah.
So it's just having to turn it off.
Well, good. I think I'm excited for your next album. I'm excited for the things that we're working on. It's nice to be around somebody who feels creative and full of energy. Yeah. And that's kind of a great thing. So thank you for giving that to me.
Cool.
That's really awesome.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all like that, creative work is the best thing ever. And it's like, if you get to do it, that it's just play.
Yeah.
Like my mom said, you've been doing the same shit since you were 6. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Even though I went and taught at this retreat, like how to look at art like an artist. But all these people were in finance and they're like, you're so lucky. We came here because we want to get back in touch with our, inner children. And I was like, I would love you to teach me what's a 401k?
Right.
What?
Right. You're very familiar with the inner child. That you want to just life hacks to just
I have
actually,
no idea. I'm still thinking when the shit goes down, I can go to Key West and open a lemonade stand and play songs for tips.
There's also good things about not being 6 years old too. So that's the other stuff. Just keeping the imagination and fun of a 6-year-old, but not eating corn dogs every day is also
only
good.
Once or twice a week.
Yeah, that's fine. Limit
and being able to drive.
Limit corn dog. Yeah. Go to any movie.
Yeah.
No, the R rating's not a problem. Uh-huh. That's pretty good.
I remember when I turned 17, I missed my family had a birthday party for me, but they didn't tell me about it. So I was like, oh, nothing's happening. Totally weird.
Not a surprise party.
No, they do this all the time. They'll be like, we made all these plans. I'm like, but no one told me.
Right.
So Striptease was out when I turned 17 and it was NC-17.
Sure.
And we were all like, we got to go see Jesse Scooter from Saved by the Bell. Uh-huh. And it was such a big deal.
Yeah.
NC-17.
And how'd it work out?
It was a horrible movie, but really funny.
Right.
And then I got to my house and my parents were mad because there was a cake on the table.
All right. Well, they got to take some responsibility for that.
Yeah.
See, this is why you don't owe them necessarily everything. They're, family's hard. It's hard. Relationships are hard. All that kind of stuff.
Humans are really difficult.
Humans, but communication helps.
Yeah.
Communication helps.
Yeah.
Which is the whole reason of Don't Be Alone with Jay Cahn. It's about communication.
That's the whole reason for art too.
Yeah. Yeah. Although it's kind of a weird form of communication.
Well, it's very one-sided.
Right. Well, each
collaboration
side,
is
both
great
have
for
one
that.
side. The interpretation of your art is completely one-sided, and the art that you put out is completely one-sided. And artists refuse to talk about the meaning of their art, so it's everyone's in the dark.
I like talking about the meaning of my art.
Well, then you're not an artist. I'm just erasing it. No, I find that a lot of people don't want to disturb the interpretation, so they'll just let people think it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's okay if Hey Jude, is about, people want to think Hey Jude is about one thing when it may be about Paul McCartney's mom and his brother and stuff
well, you
like
tell the things that you want to tell.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that the story of how a song came together or how an album came together, like that's the kind of stuff I would watch on TV.
Me too. I like it, but I'm also saying that a song, Fly Me to the Moon, Frank Sinatra's, Count Basie's version of Fly Me to the Moon.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear ultimately what Count Basie was thinking and what Frank Sinatra was thinking, because I hear such joy in it that I want to know though. I'm floating on that song, and if there's a reason I shouldn't be floating on it, I don't want to hear about it.
You want to hear a story though that makes my hair on my arm stand up? So Spooner Oldham from Muscle Shoals, he was Aretha Franklin's keyboard player, and he played on my.
Although she played pretty mean keyboards herself.
She did.
Yeah,
she did. His style is Wurlitzer.
Do you know that, stop me for a second, Aretha Franklin yelled at me once.
Really?
Just saying.
That's awesome.
Yes. She screamed at me because I put a can of Diet Coke on her piano. And fair enough.
Yeah.
No, Coke soda does not belong on her beautiful piano.
Yeah, I would love it if she yelled at me.
She did yell at me, but keep going.
So she, Spooner Oldham, he told me this story. He was in New York City. He was 16 years old, probably for some Aretha thing, in a bar, and sees this old man with this hot young blonde. And he's like, who's that? And they're like, oh, that's Hoagie Carmichael. And he's like, oh, I always wanted to know what he wrote Stardust about.
Right.
Because it makes me feel something that's very sad, but it's just so beautiful. So he asks him, and he goes, well, when my wife died, I rented a plane and I took her ashes up into the sky and let them out into the sky. And I wrote, Stardust just came to me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was like, yes.
Wow.
Like,
that's
I
a
want to
great
know
story.
those stories.
That's a great story. But that enhances the song. See, the stories that enhance the song are great, but the ones that are terrible that don't enhance the song, I don't want to hear.
But that's the thing about being an artist.
You can't ask first.
You make it up. You know?
All right.
It's like what the song is about, but then what do you want to say to the people that it's about?
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Well, Nicole, it's time to end this thing. I thank you so much for being here. You're awesome.
This is such a bright, beautiful podcasting studio.
It's
really delightful.
I've been doing podcasts for 25 years, and this has been, we built the studio, the penthouse. All the money has gone to charity and building this penthouse. So I'm glad you like it.
I love it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing your next album and continuing working with you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so fun.
All right. And thank you, the audience, for listening to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. Please feel free to write in to dbawjaykogen@gmail.com with any questions or comments. Tell me what I'm doing right and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
I would say that email address again.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan. DBAWJAYKOGEN.
Okay, that makes sense.
At gmail.com. Anyway, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Don't be alone.